Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from cardswire.com, USA Today's NFL wire site that covers, of course, your Arizona Cardinals. Episode 759. This is our first free agency review or reaction show. Recording with my co-host, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. And Seth, it's been... The free agency for the Cardinals has been both underwhelming and a little laughable because, there was no Malik Willis. There wasn't even a Jimmy Garoppolo. But we want to talk about the Cardinals signings and the one departure that they have that we had. And their only departure so far has been Jalen Thompson, safety Jalen Thompson, a guy that we knew was leaving, and he lands himself a solid 3-year deal worth $11 million per year to go with the Dallas Cowboys. So apparently it pays to be a pretty mid safety this day.
Yeah, and it's just one of those situations where you've got a team that had a really bad defense, and they're just trying to figure out how to slightly improve that any way, shape, or form. I mean, the Cowboys defense was 31st in points against last year. They were 28th in yards. I was looking at the wrong season. Hold on one second. 32nd and 30th. So even worse under Matt Eberflus. Did they retain Eberflus? I don't exactly follow the other teams.
No, Christian Parker, I think, is their new DC.
Yeah, so I mean, they're gonna, they had to make some changes, and it makes sense. I mean, the guys that, Donovan Wilson didn't exactly play well. Marquise Bell didn't play well. Like, these guys that they had kind of hoped would be the guys. Malik Hooker only played in 12 games. So they got a little bit younger, a little bit more athletic, and Jalen Thompson, all those guys I mentioned were, either bad or in their 30s already. Like, you get Jalen, he's going to only be 28 this year. You get him on a 3-year deal, probably more than, what most teams would have given him, but that's what teams have to do now, right? Like, unless you're one of the teams that guys want to go play for that are really, really good, you overpay and hope that you get a little reprieve in everything.
No, talk about overpay or changing the market with the Las Vegas Raiders signing Tyler Linderbaum for an average of $27 million per year, when the number 2 center in terms of average per year is $18 million per year. They gave him tackle money. They gave him tackle money to play center for the Raiders.
Right. And it's one of those things where you look at it and all of this is just, the overall free agency as it goes up, even good players like Tyler Linderbaum, right, get overpaid. And I did see an interesting stat about Linderbaum and that entire Ravens draft class, that they, like, every one of them got a big second contract. That's what good drafting does. Meanwhile, the Cardinals and something we'll talk about, like, they
are not good at drafting.
No, they're not right now, and that's a problem, and that's why they're in the position that they're in more than anything else, because they don't have much talent to grow from. So we'll just see how it kind of works out. But right now we got a couple of the names that we liked. It's exciting, but it'll be interesting to see how they go about everything.
Yes, and we want to start with we're going to talk about each of the additions the Cardinals have made and some of the returners that are coming back. But we're going to lead with the quarterback position, as the news came in hot early. And while Kyler Murray has not been released yet, and the Cardinals haven't announced that he's going to be released yet, which means all is quiet out there. He can't talk to other teams. Other teams can't reach out to him until the Cardinals make public their intent to release him. And they're not going to release him until the beginning of the league year so that they can post June 1st designate him, as we've discussed last week. But a couple of the dominoes fell early. Tua Tagovailoa headed to the Atlanta Falcons, and replacing Tua in Miami is what we believe was the Cardinals' number one free agent target, which was quarterback Malik Willis. He doesn't get the $30 million per year. The contract pretty palatable, 2 years, $67.5 million with $45 million guaranteed basically in the first 2 years. So basically a 2-year, $45 million deal. Now, if the Cardinals are trying to run scot-free off everything and reload in 2027, that wasn't the plan. Some suggested simply that he was the Cardinals' first choice. And then the Cardinals' second choice, Jimmy Garoppolo, had contract snag. And so who the Cardinals, this one came out of nowhere. They got Gardner Minshew. What I like to call this era's Ryan Fitzpatrick for his impact on the field. Last year's backup quarterback to Patrick Mahomes gets a 1-year deal and initially reported worth $8.25 million. It appears that it is more less than $6 million, like $5.75 million, with a total value that could reach up to $8+ million. And when for me, reaction wise, I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun at least, because for me the idea of bringing Malik Willis in, or in this case Gardner Minshew, is, well, the Cardinals are probably going to be bad. At least it's an exciting bad, or at least a new bad, something we can talk about other than what we've seen, where people were disappointed in their former first round quarterback, and our discussions are about Jacoby Brissett's fantasy numbers, but not winning games. At minimum, like Gardner Minshew, when he plays his best, is a dynamic and exciting quarterback. So that was my initial take, Seth. What was your initial thought when the report first came? Because we've got more details after that, so it's not nearly as exciting as what I hoped in day one.
It was one of those things where you just look at it and you go, what on earth is happening? Like, is this franchise really going to run back Jacoby Brissett as quarterback one? And it seems like the answer to that right now is absolutely yes. Like that's going to be the plan for 2026, and we'll see what the plan is moving forward, because that was one of those things where you and I have talked about it off the air, and like, oh, okay. That was fun for I guess to see how people reacted towards everything, but now it is what it is, right? Like they gotta lock in, they gotta get better, and instead it became this like, oh crap, they're really gonna run this back again, and this is not a impressive thing. I mean, I know people want to utilize the counting stats and be like, oh, look how much better his numbers were. And it's like, yeah. And that led to one win. In 6 of the games, they weren't even competitive. In 5 games, they had a chance to win the game. And he crapped down his leg, basically. Like, this is this is one of the wildest situations to run back that I've ever seen. And you and I have been Cardinals fans, unfortunately, for a long, long time. And so, how do they justify that, right? How do they go about getting this worked out and things of that nature? And well, the way you do that is you bring Gardner Minshew in as the other option, right? Like, so your options are Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett, and you go, okay, well, I guess we'll just see what happens and see how this all works out.
Yeah, the news came out. So that what was the less exciting part is that John Gambador, and so far it's the only one I've seen come out and say that John Gambo from 98.7, Arizona Sports 98.7, came out and said that they're signing Minshew to be the backup. Basically, they've committed to Jacoby Brissett this year, which is not exciting. Interestingly enough,
something you and I kind of talked about, right? It's interesting because the money that we're seeing reported for Gardner Minshew, it's not a lot. Like, I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but it's interesting that the reported money of 5.75 million with up to 8.25 million, so 2.5 million in bonuses, is more. That 5.75 million is more than what Jacoby Brissett's salary is.
Which is that's the weird part about it. We're like, oh, so he must, like, at minimum, I thought it was going to be, okay, new coach, Michael Thor, they're going to come in, battle. And Gamble comes out and says, nope, Brissett. And I'm like, oh, I'm not happy about that. Come on, just let's have a competition at least.
Well, and one of the great questions that I received was, what exactly did Gardner Minshew do that allowed him to go from a 1.2, I think it is, $1 million salary to a $5.75 million salary? Like, what did he do? That and
my guess, he was playing for the Chiefs, and to leave the Chiefs, it was going to cost more money to come to Arizona. 100%. He was going to have to get paid more and we haven't even gotten to the part about Jimmy Garoppolo yet, because Ben Volin from the Boston Globe, I think it is, came out and said that the Cardinals had to pivot to Minshew because they got into they had a snag in contract talks for Garoppolo, who, by the way, what did he make? $2.5 million last year or something? Like, I'll have to look that up.
I can look, but yeah. So I mean, all of that stuff, right? You look at and you just kind of like, you just
and Garoppolo. Here's the other one that came, and I don't know this. I saw this from Mike Jurecki, is that Garoppolo didn't want to come here as the backup. Back into Matthew Stafford, he's cool with going. He's fine with backing up Matthew Stafford in LA for a little bit of money. But if he's going to come to Arizona and back up Jacoby Brissett, who used to be the guy behind him 10 years ago, basically, if he was coming to Arizona, he wanted to be the starter. And so it was probably a combination of role and money. And, well, that's just hilarious. Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been a starter in years, but believes that he should be the starter over Jacoby Brissett, which, as we heard and as we talked about on the show last week, there was probably nothing less exciting than the thought of a Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett quarterback room, when those were Tom Brady's two backups 10 years ago. That started the season for the Patriots when, in 2016, when Brady was suspended for the first 4 games because of Deflategate, and Jimmy Garoppolo beat the Cardinals in that Week 1 game thanks to Zane Gonzalez Chandler Catanzaro missed a field goal, and all of that started. But the fact that I don't know how, we haven't heard whether the Cardinals went all in on Malik Willis or not. But even if they didn't, they went to Jimmy Garoppolo first. He's like, what? backup Jacoby? No, than Gardner Minshew. And he's making more than Jacoby, which, and we joked about this in our group chat. Wouldn't it be perfect if Jacoby Brissett now decided to go, I'm holding out, I want a new contract because I'm the starter this year, and my backup's getting paid more money than me?
Yeah, and that's what the question becomes with this whole situation is like, is this going to be one of those situations that ends up kind of playing out in an odd way, or is it going to be, well, this is the only place I'm going to have a chance to start, so I'll eat that, earn my incentives to get my contract up to the 8 or 9 million, whatever it is that Jacoby can earn. I know it's got like over 2 million in incentives. So those are, interesting questions to kind of watch as it plays out. And then the other question is, what is the hook if it is Jacoby, right?
Right.
Remember, what is the hook?
I don't understand. Monty Ossenfort must really believe in Jacoby Brissett, or they are all in for the tank, which goes counter what Michael Bidwill was insistent about. The reason why they fired Jonathan Gannon was because of wins. They wanted to win, and they wanted to turn up. They didn't want to wait 3 years. And Monty Ossenfort said they're going to try and field and find the most successful team for 2026. You can't viably believe that is the case when Jacoby Brissett is your starting quarterback. After, what's the numbers? Now, Jacoby put up good volume quarterback numbers. He set a career high in passing yards. He had 23 touchdowns. He was also 1-11. He went 0-9. The Cardinals went 0-9 after he was named the starting quarterback and Kyler Murray was placed on injured reserve. So when he was no longer a placeholder, they went 0-9, didn't score more than 22 points in game, and subtracting the defensive touchdown that they scored against the Jacksonville Jaguars, they averaged 18.7 points per game. I hardly think that would be considered unlocking the offense. And then, of course, the defense was atrocious, but they were also not good offensively at the start of games, which led them to be in big holes. And anytime that Jacoby Brissett had high leverage situations, he had 6 opportunities to win games at the end of in 5 games, and came up short on all 6 of those, which is not great. But yeah, so what is the plan at quarterback? Are they going to draft a guy? Are they going to have Jacoby and Gardner Minshew, and are they going to have to move up in the draft to get Ty Simpson? Are they going to try and develop a Garrett Nussmeier, a Carson Beck, Drew Allar? That plan seems just as that plan. Unless you really believe in Ty Simpson, okay, unless that's the case. But based on what we're hearing, he's probably, that quarterback tax is going to push him up into the middle of the first round, maybe eventually top 10. And it's it's equally bad as a quarterback plan to go with Brissett and Minshew as it is to let's develop a day 3 starter.
Yeah, that doesn't happen, right? And so, like you said, the question becomes, how do they get to where they want to get to? And the other question becomes, quite frankly, is this regime going to be able to withstand another tank? Like, something that you and I've talked about is that this is, this is the 3rd top 5 pick. And I get people who say, well, it wasn't Monty's fault the first one. No, it's not. But it's just a reality. Like, this is the 3rd time he's picked.
This is the second time.
Yeah, he's right, that he's done it. So his 3rd top 5 pick, and I know they traded back to 6, I'm aware, but his 3rd top 5 pick, he's drafted 0 Pro Bowlers. He's signed 0 Pro Bowlers. He's, he's gone all in on the defense twice now with literally nothing to show for it. I mean, their defensive line is terrible. And so like that's what the question becomes more than anything else is how long do you give a guy to continue to show that he's not able to do it? And that becomes the question of, okay, so this year you chalk up to a lost year. By the way, the fact that we're having this conversation in March is astounding, but also, it is what it is. But if you chalk that up to now, right, that they're probably going to be bad again, what is the justification of keeping him around?
Yeah, it seems absurd. So it feels weird to say that there's an actual plan going on, but that wasn't the only move that was made in free agency for the Cardinals. So in addition to that, so coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the Best Our Cardinals talk on the web, they have a new running back, and it's a guy that Seth in particular, targeted in our preview show for last week. That's coming up next on Rise of Sierra. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Best Our Cardinals talk on the web. The Cardinals also made actually the first news that broke in free agency for the Cardinals, adding former Atlanta Falcons running back Tyler Allgeier to a 2-year, a little more than $12 million. A very reasonable deal for a guy who's been a 1,000-yard rusher, but has been a backup to Bijan Robinson the last 3 years. Granted, he did have his lowest per yard production at 3.6 yards, but scored 8 touchdowns. He's a short yardage guy, and it's he's not going to get as many opportunities. He can pass block, he can do this, he can do that. Adding to the room James Conner, whose contract was restructured. Probably we'll have to find out how much lower that salary is. And Tyler Allgeier, it's a sneaky, nice addition to that running back room, and I'm not exactly sure what it means to the room yet. Whether he will be a co-number one with Connor, whether he will be expected to the lead, if he's going to have the same role as he did with Atlanta, and what this means for Trey Benson moving forward. Because it feels like by adjusting James Conner's contract, you basically locked him in for this year. And I'm guessing once we get the numbers that will be a reduced salary, but fully guaranteed. And then you add Tyler Allgeier, and then you got Trey Benson. And what was it? There was I can't remember who it was on Twitter. I think one of these analyst guys, and he said, once again, we see that you like Trey Benson more than NFL teams do.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the reality has become for Trey, and it's unfortunate. But also something that you and I've talked about, right, is not being afraid or like allowing allowing the fact that this is one of your guys that you picked to play into the fact that he hasn't been what you had hoped. Now, when he's on the field, Trey Benson's been fine. I don't think he's been great by any stretch of the imagination, but he's been fine. However, in 2 consecutive years, when he's been given the opportunity to, be the lead back, he's gotten hurt immediately. He has less than 100.
Yes.
He has less than 100 career rushing attempts. And the funny, ironic, I don't know what the right word is. That's after being in college and having only 316 career rushing attempts. He's an explosive player, but he is, despite his size, he's a very injury prone type of guy, right? And Allgeier is kind of the opposite of that. And I think all 3 will be on the roster. I don't think you can move on necessarily from Benson quite yet. But it is interesting that they basically went and got a kind of a poor man's James Conner, right, to team up with James Conner, and they're not.
So you said it. It's not thunder and lightning. It's thunder and thunder.
Right. And so, they if you were hoping to see some diversity in the run game, you're not going to see it. Allgeier is, he's on the way he's gone about his first 4 years, 4.9 yards, 3.7, 4.7 yards, 3.6. So this year should be right around 4.8 yards per carry. And he should have a good year before he has a down year next year with, under 4 yards per carry. And then he will be a free agent again. But, the way that this worked out, I think it made a lot of sense. They needed a guy that, while he's never been asked to carry the load, right, 170 rush attempts per season is his average. He's a guy that has shown the ability to maintain for a full season and stay healthy. He's played in.
Yeah. So, and two important stats that will probably jinx, that we will probably jinx him this season. He hasn't missed a game. He's missed one game in his career. He hasn't missed a game in the last 3, and he's never fumbled, which means probably week 5 he's going to break his leg while fumbling. Knowing the Cardinals' luck, which please don't happen. But two very important things. Very steady with the ball, and has been very durable. Which, if his usage remains roughly the same, I think would be a good idea. And I think one of the things that the Cardinals, I think, is a mistake last year, and we talked about kind of how the running back room went and how some of the troubles offensively, is that they tried to incorporate Trey Benson without reducing James Conner's load, and in so doing, kind of weakened a second position. Because while Trey Benson, we can say, is probably a more talented running back than Amar DeMercado, basically DeMercado was pushed completely out of the offense because Trey Benson would then became the spell guy. So like the one guy who would come in for, like, the backup would come in for like a drive in the second quarter, like teams tend to do with their backup running back, and third down back. They increased Benson's load without decreasing Conner's. And we wondered if that would be wise to do, and we thought that Conner's load would decrease, and I think that would increase the efficiency of the offense, especially as Conner gets older. And that didn't happen. Conner was less productive. Benson wasn't. I think while his numbers were fine, I think his role, he was not as good in that third down role as a pass protector and things, and Amar DeMercado. So when the offensive line was a tick worse, Conner was a tick worse, and then you took their best third down back off the field on passing downs to give Benson more time. That can explain a lot of the offensive things that just looked a little bit out of sync to start the year. And then the second he gets the opportunity to be, and Benson, like, his yards per carry looked good, but that's because he had 2 very big runs, and then the rest were very, very, they were meager at best. It's a bummer because, like, coming out of college, he was the guy, he was a running back that most felt was a great value because he's got the ability to carry a big load. He's got the explosiveness, but he did have injuries to consider. And that so far, the durability has been a concern, and there isn't any guarantee. So, like, he doesn't have any salary guarantees as a third round pick, and it would cost, about $600,000 in dead money. But depending on who else they bring in, if they do anything else at the running back position, we'll see what happens there. But I do like the addition of Allgeier because he's a very steady, reliable back, and the Cardinals kind of need steady right now. They need steady and durable.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing when you look at it. The other thing is that you've got a group in this instance right now that have just, there's a lot of question marks, right? What does James Conner have left coming off the injury? Again, high investment in the running back room, but if Mike LaFleur is going to run that outside zone game, the the Shanahan tree is known for, right? Like that would, the Shanahan McVay tree is known for, then that makes a lot of sense. And Allgeier is a really good fit in that. And then maybe you just hope that you get something from Trey Benson this year. Because like you said, unless they just draft a guy too and then move on from Benson, there's really no reason until you add another running back to think anything other than he's going to be on the roster this year.
Coming on next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. Let's talk about a couple of other moves and a move that we just got coming across Twitter. We can talk about that offensive line and a couple offensive linemen and a receiver. That's coming next on Rise of Sierra. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. The Cardinals have made 2 moves on the offensive line. I don't know if Seth caught that, but the one that came across as we are recording is the Cardinals added veteran offensive lineman Matt Pryor on a 1-year deal.
I got all the stats you need, Jess, when you're ready.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing, everyone's saying, oh, there's your right tackle. I'm like, is it though? Because the last time he was a starter was 2024 when he started 15 games at right guard. They added as well Isaac Seumalo, previously from the Pittsburgh Steelers, to a 3-year deal worth, was it 33 million, 36 million,
31 and a half. Yeah.
31 and a half million. So about 10 and a half million per year. Now, so that makes now 230 plus 2 offensive linemen at over 30 that they signed. And if Pryor's not the right tackle, you have Seumalo, who's been playing mostly left guard in his career. He can play started at right guard. And Matt Pryor, who last started as a guard in 2024. You've taken care of those 2 positions at right and left guard. You have Evan Brown, who's up in the air, and you still need a right tackle. So my question is for you, Seth. One, what about Pryor? Do you think he's going to be the tackle or the guard? Or, and what have you liked so far, or like or don't like about these 2 offensive line moves?
I like both of the moves. Pryor gives you flexibility to be the right guard or right tackle, depending on how you want to address that in free agency, right? Or the draft. Sorry. However, something that you and I talked about. Pryor is 31, or let me double check.
He is 31. He just turned 31.
He just turned 31. Yelda Froholt will be 30 before the season starts. You mentioned Isaac Seumalo, who I love the move. I truly, truly do. So I don't want anybody to think I don't. But this guy is going to be 33 during the season.
He'll be 33 in the season.
He's, coming off.
He misses a few games. Like, he's not like missing 10 games, but he's missed 3 or 4 games each of the last couple of years.
Yeah. And my question with the Seumalo signing isn't necessarily Seumalo. It is the fact that you're signing a guy that's kind of in the twilight of his career. And by the way, we have seen, we have to always talk about this. We have seen interior offensive linemen play into their late 30s. So it's not like it's a foregone conclusion that he'll be, winding down, because he has played the best ball of his career his last 4 seasons, from the time he's been 29 until 32 last year. That being said, this is more of a move that you would make with your second year, you're a rookie quarterback that you drafted highly going into his second year, when you're going quote unquote all in, right? Like, that's typically when you see a move like this for a 33-year-old lineman. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's a bad move at all. I absolutely love the player. I think it gives you an insanely strong left side of that offensive line, and really kind of gives you an opportunity to focus your energy on the right side and what you want to do. think that we have to be able to look at this and go, was Siamalu the right move in this instance? Like, it's never a bad thing to upgrade the offensive line. It's really not, and I don't want anybody to take it that way, but like, he's going to be in year 2. He's going to be 34 for whoever the starter is next year. And by the way, if the starter is again Jacoby Brissett next year, like, it might just be time to fold up shop with the
it's like we retire.
But let's say they get the first pick and they have their pick of quarterbacks, and they're able to convince the guy to come to Arizona and play in Arizona. You're going to have to hope that Siamalu is one of those unicorns that plays deep, past 35, 36 years old, to get the value out of him, because I don't know how much value you're going to get from him this year. That's my only thing. So I love the signing in terms of the player. I just want to see if he's able, like, how much he affects the outcome, because I don't know if it's going to be until, maybe his final year with that rookie quarterback next year where you see the benefits of it.
Like, it's never a bad thing to
Never,
add
ever
starting caliber offensive linemen. It's just interesting plan wise how they're going about it. And a 1-year deal, okay, like this deal for Pryor makes sense. When they signed Jonah Williams, a 2-year deal at his age made sense. 3 years for a soon to be 33-year-old, that's like, oh, that's probably a forced overpay to get him here, because the other guys are going to either cost more than you want to pay, and I'm just, it is an interesting move for them to do that. And then the question is, what are you going to do with Evan Brown? Are you going to put Seumalo at right guard? He started at right guard before. Are you going to leave it a left guard, move Evan Brown to right guard? Are you going to cut Evan Brown completely? Now you add Matt Pryor. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Is he depth? We'll have to wait and see the contract numbers come in for Pryor. But my guess, like you were saying, the versatility between tackle and guard is kind of important, because that gives them a little bit of flexibility for the draft. And everyone seems to be penciling in right tackle, a tackle for one of the Cardinals' 2 top picks, which would make sense. And if they draft a tackle in round 1 or round 2, then you could easily slide Pryor into right guard and then put your rookie there at right tackle. And so I guess that makes sense that way.
And it really does to me. It makes a lot of sense. It's not sexy by any means. A guy that's been a very, fringe starter in his career. I mean, you look at it, in 109 games, he started 40.
Yes.
And
the most games that he started for was in 2024 when he started at guard for the Bears, which suggests, because he started 10 games for the Eagles in 2020 at left guard, that he is a better guard than tackle, it would suggest, because 25 of his 40 starts have come at guard.
Yeah, and so that's the way you look at this. But I don't ever think it's a problem to, especially on a 1-year deal. It's probably, like you said, probably going to be vet minimum type, maybe $2.5 million type deal, and that's fine. The offensive line is still up in the air, but now you at least have 4 names to pencil in, and now you just got to find that 5th and figure out where you want him to fit.
And the other move that we wanted to mention before moving on to the last segment is they added receiver Kendrick Bourne to a 2-year deal worth, it first said it was worth like $11.75 million, but then was amended to say $10 million. So basically, Kendrick Bourne gets a 2-year deal to come to the Cardinals, and that he becomes your clear number 3 receiver. He is also 30 years old, but very, very good relationship with Mike LaFleur. When his first few years when he was in San Francisco, that's when LaFleur was in San Francisco. So he gets reunited with Mike LaFleur. You saw the on Twitter just how happy Bourne was. Like, whether, I don't know if it was so happy that he's coming to the Cardinals, being reunited with Mike LaFleur, or whether it was that he was getting a 2-year, $10 million contract. He's been productive. He's been, like, last year, he started 8 games in that decimated receiver room, 37 catches, 551 yards. His best season was his first year with the Patriots after he left San Francisco the first time, 55 catches for 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. He can play multiple positions. He's got size, and he's not going to, like, if you put him with Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson, he's not going to command the ball. He's not going to be a problem being the complementary receiver.
No, and I think it makes sense in the sense that he's, a veteran. He's a little bit bigger of a target out of that slot than Greg Dortch, and he gives you a little bit more juice out of there. I think he was excited because I don't think anybody else was going to pay him that much money. I mean, I'm looking at his contract history. He did sign a kind of a 4-year, looks like 24 million-ish type of deal with the Patriots after 4 years, and with the Niners. But yeah, a 2-year. It's on Spot Track right now. That has it as a 2-year, $10 million deal with 7.5 guaranteed. So it's about, and it ends up being about 11.5 million overall. So yeah, I mean, was anybody else gonna give him that? Probably not, but that's okay. I mean, it's not a bad wide receiver 3 contract, and it gives you a little bit more of a,
hopefully he produces more than they got out of Zay Jones the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's the Zay Jones replacement, right? Doesn't mean that Greg Dortch won't be back. It'll just mean that it's unlikely. So,
yes. Coming up next on the Res Zero podcast, Bizarre Cardinals Talk on the Web. One last segment to discuss, and that is one defensive lineman edition and some guys returning. That's coming up next on Res Red. We're back on the Res Zero podcast, Bizarre Cardinals Talk on the Web. The Cardinals brought back a defensive lineman and brought back a defensive lineman who was gone for a year, and they lock in their specialists. Well, 2 of them. And so the guys coming back, LJ Collier signed to a 1-year deal. Kicker Chad Ryland, 1-year deal. Punter Blake Gillikin, 1-year deal. And then a guy that we both mentioned last week in our defensive preview show, returning to Arizona on a 2-year deal, is defensive tackle Roy Lopez on 2 years, $11.5 million. Reasonable contract for what he's able to do. Comparatively, they paid, I think it was $6.5 million for Calais Campbell last year. They're getting 2 years out of Lopez at a little bit less money, but you're not going to get the pass rushing production. But what we've seen from Lopez is that he is a capable starter, good depth, and it's something the Cardinals badly need. And with the rate we're bringing back Collier as depth now, if he stays healthy, like his one in 3 he's on his 4th consecutive 1-year deal with the Cardinals. 2 of those years was 1 game and 4 games, and then in 2024 when he played every game, he had his best season in the NFL. The former first-round pick was disruptive. Had some pass rushes, had 3.5 sacks. He's a great locker room guy. As well, I'm sure he has the benefit of having, Nick Rawlis knows the type of guy, the type of player he can rely on him. But it really looks like here, with having released Dalvin Tomlinson and Bilal Nichols, and they cut Justin Jones last year, they're kind of going all in. they're kind of going all in. They have to get big production out of their young guys in Walter Nolan and Darius Robinson. And then the question is, will Nolan even be ready for the season? Because we don't know what his knee injury is.
No, and that's what the issue is. It's funny. I had a buddy text me, and he's like, I'm not overly worried about the offense or the defensive line. And I was like, and I said something similar to what you and I had talked about, last week. And it was like, well, we don't even know what his injury is. And they're like, it was an ACL. And I was like, if you see something that says it was an ACL, please send it to me. I'm happy to be wrong about this. And then he texted me back, and he's just like, what the hell? They've never even listed what his injury was. I was like, no, that's what they do now. Like, that's just such a weird thing to me. And I don't know, man. I don't know. So that being said, adding Roy Lopez back, a guy you and I mentioned, last week, it makes a lot of sense. He's a veteran presence that is consistent, not flashy, but consistent, something they desperately need, right?
Yeah. And, something, and they need more. They need more on the defensive line. So we'll see what else is coming, but it doesn't sound like they're going to be splashy at all. Collier, if he's healthy, is a solid addition. He's not great.
Collier's exactly. If he's your number 5 lineman, you're very excited, right?
Yes. And so if he, maybe he pushes for a starting job, but ideally the starting should be Darius Nolan and Roy Lopez, with Dante Stills, LJ Collier, and PJ Mustipher, and whoever else. But we can't count on those 6 because their defensive linemen just get hurt, and they're on their 3rd defensive line coach in 3 years. So we'll have to see how that goes as well. So, but I like the addition of Lopez and bringing back Ryland at under $2 million, and Gillikin. The bringing back of Gillikin, that sort of alleviates the concerns of, well, he missed the whole season practically with a back injury. Apparently, they're okay with that, giving him, he got a raise. Now the question is, who's going to be the long snapper? It's just a matter of whether Aaron Brewer is coming back or not, or whether it's somebody new. And you have to assume that they're going to also re-sign Joshua Carty and have a competition, at least for Carty and Ryland, because at $1.85 million with partial guarantees, I didn't catch how much. I should catch it, because Howard wrote not the contract, but wrote about the contract today. Let me see how much it is, with $475,000 guaranteed. So that's not much. So only $150,000 of his salary is guaranteed. So there's definitely nothing that's locking the Cardinals in financially to Ryland if Carty actually ends up better. And Carty is an exclusive rights free agent. The Cardinals will simply tender him, and if they tender him, he can't sign anywhere else. He has to come here unless he's cut. And so that's what I unpack there. Gillikin, who's been he actually led the NFL in punting average at 50.7 last year, even in 5 games, and he already holds the Cardinals record for the longest punting average in a season. He's been fantastic since he came here. The downside is that he has been hurt a couple of times, and so hopefully he can stay healthy this next year, and that whatever Coach Gabriel is asking him to do doesn't stray from what he's been doing previously.
Yeah, the hope is just that, right, that Gillikin's healthy, because when healthy, he was a weapon. He was, potentially the best punter in the NFL last year when healthy. It's just now he's got to maintain that health some way, somehow. The rest of it is what it is. I don't think there's a negative to what they've done. Bringing back the special teams guys.
It's like Ryland can be good. He can be inconsistent, but it's a crapshoot with almost any kicker. Almost any kicker is a crapshoot unless you get one of the great ones, and the great ones cost way more than $2 million. So yeah, and they can continue to work with the young route instead of the old route. And we'll have to we will probably have one that'll wrap up this edition of the show. We might have one more later this week. We'll see what other moves the Cardinals make. But until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.